Hello and welcome to Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock with all of today's news coming at you. John Ramdeen and Robin Black will be by as usual as we discuss the latest addition to the UFC roster. A headliner is popped for performance-enhancing drugs, and Invicta is set to return on UFC Fight Pass. During a conference call with the media on Thursday, it was announced that Invicta FC will run their first card on Fight Pass Saturday, September the 6th from Kansas City, Missouri, featuring 2 title fights on the 9-bout card. Michelle Waterson will defend her atomweight title against Yasuko Tamada in the main event, on a card that will also feature Tara La Rosa taking on Roxanne Modafferi, Tanya Evinger taking on Ediane Gomes, and they will also crown their first strawweight champion on the September card. UFC President Dana White posted a photo online Thursday night displaying a signed contract from Holly Holm, who is expected to make her UFC debut later this fall. The former boxer comes into the organization with a 7-0 record, but suffered a broken arm in the opening round of her last bout back in April, yet still went on to win the fight in the 5th round. Kat Zingano will finally return on September the 27th when she meets Amanda Nunes at UFC 178, with Yahoo Sports breaking the news. Zingano last fought in April of 2013 with a win over Miesha Tate, but after a pair of knee surgeries, she missed her opportunity to fight Ronda Rousey and coach on Tough while remaining on the sidelines since the Tate fight. And Ali Bagautinov became the latest fighter to get popped from a random drug test. This time it was the British Columbia Athletic Commission that administered the testing. It was revealed Thursday that Bagautinov failed a pre-fight test for EPO, but due to the processing time in the lab, the result did not come back until after he fought at UFC 174 on June 14th in Vancouver, where he lost to Demetrius Johnson. Bagautinov will be suspended for 1 year, with the UFC putting out a statement that he will have to pass a drug test at the conclusion of his suspension in order to fight for the organization again. And I'm here with Robin Black and John Ramdeen, and if this was Sesame Street, the fight version, it would be brought to you by the letters E, P, and O this week. Ali Bagautinov, the latest random drug test failure. This one was interesting because it wasn't the post-fight drug test that they caught him for, because we saw him fight on June 14th. It was the test before the fight that didn't get processed in enough time.
They didn't get around to it.
So he ended up fighting, got smoked by Demetrius Johnson, and then coming out of it, we learned, well, he failed actually quite prior to that fight. Very interesting, though, EPO is still a drug. No one had been caught for this drug before Chael Sonnen, so, I mean, setting the record in that mark is Chael Sonnen along with HGH, but EPO is still a drug that, you know, among circles is very widespread, but not one you typically are finding in drug tests, but now random testing is changing that.
Yeah, and man, even though it is, there'll be a little window where a bunch of guys are probably going to get caught, because it's the kind of drug that makes sense in a real pressure sport. It makes you make more red blood cells and use them appropriately, so you can take oxygenated hemoglobin, put oxygen into your body, and survive longer. So kind of, we've seen cyclists use it and stuff, but there'll be this little window guys are going to get caught, and then it'll go away, because it has a half-life of 5 to 9 hours. So you take it, 5 to 9 hours later, the levels in your blood are half what they were. You do a little quick math, you take it around 10 o'clock at night, guys won't be getting caught. So it's a weird one. I mean, we should just call this Steroid News Now Extra for a year or two, because there's going to be a whole bunch of guys getting dinged. You don't even really know what to kind of think of it after a while. It's like, you know, guys are going to use stuff. It's part of sport in every sport. You get these weird little windows in baseball or football or whatever where everyone gets caught, and then they're going to figure out how to use it.
Is it more concerning that we're talking about combat sports as opposed to a guy picking up a baseball bat and hitting a ball with it? I mean, should there be more concern because this is physical violence we're talking about that's being accentuated?
Sure, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, whether you're on this stuff or not, you kick somebody in the head, you're going to inflict brain damage. That's just the reality of things. Guys get taken down, they have their knees destroyed, they have their shoulders destroyed. You're in a sport, it's a sport of hurting. So, I mean, I can understand why certain guys would want to take it, because they want to be prepared for the carnage that's going to happen inside of the cage for 15 or 25 minutes. But on the other side, you know, a lot of people consider it cheating. So it just depends on your angle and how you look at it.
Yeah, you guys actually make two different but very good points. On one sense, if you give a guy a bunch of, you know, performance-enhancing drugs, he can hurt another guy more. Then it's like, well, I got to fight, and it hurts everywhere. So I take a bunch of performance-enhancing drugs to protect myself and build up some armor in my rib cage and all this kind of stuff. This is a really weird time in human sport evolution, because you understand why people take drugs, especially if Kennedy comes out and says 70 or 80% of guys are on it, and I believe him. I go, maybe I better talk to a doctor. Maybe I don't want to fight guys on drugs. I better get on drugs. And it's a weird time, man.
If you are an athlete right now within the UFC anywhere, this wasn't Nevada, this was British Columbia doing the testing. Is there at least that fear right now that, maybe I should not be doing this right now, because if I've got a fight coming up, who knows if I'm just going to get a knock on my door right now, as random testing is somewhat prevalent, at least right now. Is there at least that modicum of fear at this point?
I'm sure there might be, but you have to look at the fact that you don't know what other guys are on. You don't know, which doctors and, the support team that some of these top athletes that have money can surround themselves with, where they say, you know what, we're going to be able to get you on this. Nobody's going to be able to detect that stuff. That's stuff that goes on. So as an athlete, maybe you're not a guy in the top 5, or you're not making money. You're not a household name. So you have to do whatever you have to do to ensure your safety when you leave the cage.
Yeah, and it's such a strange conversation, because the more you know about the realities, in a perfect world, we'd sit up here and go, this is crazy. Get everybody off the drugs. Why is this happening? This is bad for the sport. And it is bad for the sport. And that's ultimately what you hope to protect. But we know with the realities of what's going on, what's really going out there, what's been going on out there forever in every sport. And there's this weird aura that people are supposed to sit around at desks like this and pretend that the truth isn't the truth. We're all supposed to sit there and act like the things that people believe are the truth. But realistically, people have been using drugs in every sport for a long time, and we can't fix it here. The UFC can't fix it. Commissions can't fix it. It's a giant global reality of competition.
Let's move on over. Of course, Thursday night it was announced after a lengthy period of negotiations. Holm has now been signed. She's expected to fight in the fall. Her manager was telling MMA Junkie, don't expect her to be fast-tracked to a title fight. Do you feel that there's a chance she will? I mean, her first fight will not be a title fight. But I think there's a large amount of people that do not know Holm, and I think that she should be thrown into a fight or two so people know who she is. But you're right in the case that she will probably be fighting for a title within the next year.
That's exactly it. Holm's a name. Oh, this girl is a professional boxer. 7 victories, 6 of them all by stoppage. She is going to be the biggest threat to Ronda Rousey's 135-pound title. People eating popcorn at home, they're like, I am sold. I got to see this fight. Whether it's 1 or 2 fights in the UFC, she'll be fighting for the title, because that's the big name fight.
Yeah, and that's the game, right? We're in the promotion game. We, people in the business or other fighters sit around and go, oh, well, that you have opinions on stuff. But the regular people going about their lives, whatever their millions of interests are, and their work and their kids and their family and whatever, you got to stop them for a second and go, no, seriously, that really good-looking killer, Ronda Rousey? There's another one, and she just does this, and people go unconscious.
Is that the game right now? Just who's the newest monster? Who's the new? It's almost like, forget the comparisons to Mike Tyson. This is like Bruno Sammartino or Hulk Hogan, and Dana White is Bobby Heenan bringing in the new heel of the month for Ronda Rousey. It's like, well, here's a top-level boxer. Here's a monster in Chris Cyborg. It's like, it's just, what's the bigger project we can find that can bring down Ronda Rousey, because thus far she's knocking them down like dominoes.
For sure, and we'll sell tickets, and that's our job. And this isn't, the UFC is doing terrible things. Why do they do this? This is this is how life works now. You have 700 million video games, 25,000 seasons of television shows to watch. You got a job. You got 5 kids. You're inundated by millions of YouTube videos. If we're gonna get your attention for a moment to make you give us $59, we gotta get your attention. And a woman who knocks people out with her fists, or a crazy cyborg, is gonna do that.
Coming up this weekend, no MMA. I'm going to be sleeping for the next 48 hours. We've got Fight News Now Extra coming up.